Hello, everyone. It's Angelica here. I'm so excited to have one of my teachers from India, Corrin, here on the podcast today. Welcome, Corrin.
Thank you so much.
Beautiful. So, we're just going to get right into it. And I'd love to kick this off by asking, what was the catalyst for your spiritual awakening?
There were many events that really took place for me to awaken. It was a really big unfolding and it was in a short amount of time. But it started with, I guess, the biggest thing that really was the catalyst was a breakup or a relationship coming to a closure. And that just taught me so much about surrender and letting go of control and really having to find love within myself. And that was the biggest thing, was seeking love outside of myself for so long. And so it just was one thing into another that led into me finding a yoga practice and using yoga as a tool to come to clarity and sanity and mental health. And within that, I was doing some practices, but also still going really fast in life and still seeking externally. So I was doing yoga, and it was a fast yoga practice. And I was skiing. I was living in Colorado. And within that amount of time of when I was healing, I had taken a couple trips, volunteered in Africa, traveled to Europe to really, but I was still escaping myself, seeking externally. And so within all of this, I broke my leg skiing because I was still going just too fast, and that brought me to a total standstill to really deal with my emotions and deal with my mental health and kind of face the inner stuff, the inner work that needed to be done that was being avoided. I was working as a pediatric nurse already for about 5 or 6 years, and needed a little self care. I was always taking care of others and didn't really know that I needed self care. So it was a journey of realizing to slow down, to do the inner work, to find myself. And also within that time, I spent time at home with some friends and my roommate's partner at the time. And within that, and he was really this person who wanted to live life fully and live it fast and live it. He was just free. He didn't care about what people thought of him. And he was just a great role model during that time to really, because I was working through depression and some heavy energies and really needing to see someone living ferociously and living just fully without caring what anyone thinks. And so he was a really good role model at that time. And he ended up leaving his body in an avalanche that year. So it was like so many events at once. And when George left his body, that was really my full, like, you have to get out of your victim story. This enough about me, about this like story I was letting myself sit in. And that was really, he gave me life. Him leaving life in this form gave me life. It was like a freedom to just live fully and live now and live radically the way I needed to. And so that was really that force that woke me up. And within that year, I started to live in that way. And so this was like an unfolding of maybe 3 years, starting in like 2012 to 2015. And within that year, I was still going fast though, but I was awakening in new ways and realizing I have control over my own sanity. I have control over my own happiness. I have control over my own experience of love. I had met Ananji, my teacher, our teacher, in India, or in Boulder first, in Boulder, Colorado at Hanuman Festival. And so that's when I was first exposed to this experience of total love within myself. And I don't need to seek it externally. It's right here within me. And his journey guided me back home to myself. And so that was a really profound experience to go to this festival a couple years and have this unity experience and realize that everything I'm seeking is right here within me. And that was the truth that was coming through. So within that year, I had signed up for my first yoga teacher training in India just for myself, not to teach. And I had been practicing Ashtanga for about 2 years or like every day. And then within that year, I got a brain injury skiing. And so when I went to Sattva in India for my first yoga teacher training, I actually had was recovering from a brain injury. And it was all of these things that were showing me, all of these events were showing me and taking me out of my job as a pediatric nurse and showing me like there's other gifts you have to offer here. There's other ways of healing that you can bring forth to people and children, because I was working with children about 8 or 9 years in the hospital setting. And so it just showed me that I have this natural capacity to be a healer, but that I can find different tools to express that with. And that's where yoga came in and gave me a whole new toolbox to express this healing through. So that's a quick version of a very extended journey,
Yeah,
a
wow.
wild ride.
Seriously, such a ride. And I love how you always bring it back to the intention of, okay, why, instead of why is this happening to me and how is this happening for me, was like the common theme that kept coming up. And the way, like, whenever you look back in your life and you can see it from that higher perspective, you're like, all that stuff had to happen because I wasn't getting it. I was still going down the path of still being a nurse, or I was still moving too fast. And like, until I learned that lesson, the universe is still going to be sending me those the way that they were teaching you, until you like actually pivoted. I'd love to hear now, like you were in India and you went through the training and you've experienced all these beautiful practices. How is that so different than your Ashtanga practice? And how did that propel you into even a deeper awakening?
Yeah, for me, Ashtanga was like a doorway. It made me slow down and it was therapy. It got me out of my head and into my body. And so that was really helpful because I wasn't so into talking to a therapist or the traditional styles of going through this mental health healing. And I was very resistant to it. So Ashtanga really got me into my body, into my physical body, so that I could move the energy and come to stillness in that way. Whereas the teachings at Sattva gave me a whole nother toolbox for just living with intention, living with presence, living with awareness, how to approach life from an awake state of consciousness. So it shifted my consciousness state through the meditation, through the kriyas. It let me release old biocellular memory that I was storing that I didn't even know existed. So it was so profound in that way that, oh, there's memory, there's information stored in my cells that I don't even know exists, and it's keeping me in these patterns and it's holding me back from letting go of these patterns. So that was really profound when I tuned into these other practices that really let me release this stored cellular energy that was blocking me from excelling or evolving. And so that was really a profound experience, that and it was just so expansive that I felt like I was tripping on acid every day, but in the most profound, amazing, grounded way, and there were no side effects besides like total bliss. So I mean, that in itself was the biggest antidepressant possible. So just to know that all of this is naturally accessible within our bodies and within this energetic field in this realm, if we just do some tap into a little breath work and some practices, chanting and kriya, that was really a mind-blowing experience for me.
Yeah, I mean, I can totally relate when I was like, "Oh my God, like there's breathwork and there's kriyas, there's this whole other side of yoga that can actually get to a state of bliss." Because I've read the Yoga Sutras by Patanjali and I've read all the steps to enlightenment, and I was like, I don't know, I must be missing something because my asana practice is not getting me to that state of bliss. Like that must be for like only the ancient rishis who like lived way back when. Like that's not possible. And it's so that it's like, wow, I have all this power within me, this infinite potential, which is the kundalini energy itself. And when you tap into that, it just like you said, like it expands and it opens up everything for you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So now that you've been in your practice, when was the first time, what year was it that you went to India for your first training?
2015. But I met Anand in 2013. So I started tuning into Kriyas then.
And so, like for my own, this is kind of like a personal question because there's so many kriyas. I mean, that you can use, and you can constantly be shifting your practice. But do you ever find yourself like even finding stagnation or hitting plateaus in your yoga practice? And how are you able to shift yourself into seeing a new perspective, into experiencing your yoga like it's the first time again?
Like, which practice do I tune into?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it just depends. It depends on where I'm at. So right now I'm 29 weeks pregnant, right? So the practices that I can tune into right now are more about chanting, more about stillness and finding a fluid, more feminine movement, right? So the resources I used to tap into are totally different. Before, I used to tap into like engaging my navel, working a lot of the navel kriyas, hot kriya, Shiva Kriya, more of the intense fiery Kriyas. I love. They just shift you so quickly into a new state of consciousness and awareness, and it's like the easiest tool. Sudarshan Kriya. So all of these were really powerful for me. So now moving into this different phase of my body and my being in pregnancy, and I just took the Sattva prenatal yoga teacher training, and that was really helpful in giving me new resources. So tuning more into softening, slowing, the feminine, honoring. So really lately I've been tuning into Sri Yantra practices and Lalita Devi, this goddess, this form of the goddess, and really bringing her, the cosmic mother, forward. So working with Parvati and mantras and the cosmic mother. So this has been my sadhana in the last couple months here.
Ah, that's so beautiful. Kind of shifting the conversation, what challenges did come up for you during the pandemic, and were they karmic challenges?
The challenges as far as my life flow just got altered. My plan, right? We think we have a plan. I thought I'd be back in India after 4 months. I did have an intention to get a space here in Hawaii and Maui and to create a space and come and go from that space, go back to India, teach at the academy, and come back here and teach here. So it has grounded me here in Hawaii for the last, I guess, as far as this year, a year I've been here, and it has given me opportunities. So I wouldn't necessarily say it's karmic. I would say it's more dharmic, because all of this was wanting to flow through me, and I was going to rush back to India, but I needed to ground here and be here available to create a community here in a sangha for students to really drop in and go deeper and provide these tools. So I feel like it's really been a lot of opportunity has arisen, and it's grounded me enough to, you know, grow a baby and be still enough in this world to do things that nature was ready for me to take on. So, as far as karmic challenges, it's just I love to travel, I love to be on adventures. And so it's brought some of that stuff up where stillness, having to be still, and also going deeper into relating, the life of relating and how that looks. And it's another way of evolving. When I'm in India, my focus is on teaching and holding space in the community. And so personal relationships don't naturally arise so much in that environment, but this has given me the opportunity to apply all these teachings, integrate them, and apply them in relationships, apply them in this maybe, I guess, more mundane or slower flow of life. Um, and so that's been another gift, but also, of course, karmic stuff comes up in that, to be clear, old patterns that we haven't seen, if we haven't been in a relationship in that way in a while, or so in being with family, naturally things come up. So it's been a beautiful opportunity of clearing and releasing old patterns and seeing things again, that I maybe hadn't seen if I was just teaching in India consistently. So,
Totally.
yeah.
It's kind of funny because it's like when you have like that whole plan, you have that expectation, but it's also like you're seeing from a myopic view from where your conscious was at that point in time. But if we're constantly evolving and conscious is expanding, like of course the plan is going to change way beyond what we were seeing in it from like in the past. So that's so beautiful that it's changing into your dharma. Like wow, I am stepping into this new identity of myself and I'm learning even more. Like of course it's going to bring up like these struggles, but it's so beautiful that it can. And it's so awesome that it's like I find with the Vedas, it's never ending knowledge. There's always something that you can go deeper into. And I love all the yogic practices so much. And recently, I've been just starting my Vedic studies into Jyotish, the science of light, which I know you have had experience with that too. And I'd love for you to kind of explain what is Jyotish. We have a couple of podcasts on there, but I know there's always newbies on our podcast listening to it, so they'd love to hear what does the science of light mean?
Yeah, so as you said, it's the science of light, and it's a doorway into the infinite, right? So it's a very expansive science. It's cosmology, and it's the oldest form. So it is really taking into account all the details, right? The time of your birth, the location of your birth, and it's looking into the doorway of your life, of a soul's journey, right? So when we do readings, it's really looking into the doorway of this soul's journey and their karmic blueprint. So they were born in that location, that time, that day, all for a reason. They had past karma, past samskaras that brought them to that arrangement, right? So it's just a certain alignment, and it's giving us a peek. But then when we work with an individual and we work with their natal chart, it's really allowing us to tune into their state of consciousness, to tune into their evolutionary state, and then read the chart from that place. So Sattva Jyotish, in that sense, really allows us to work with an individual where they're at, and it allows us to read the chart from that perspective and give them tools for evolution, tools to continue to evolve and work with the planetary energies and the different astrological signs and where they're all located in the chart. So it's just another tool that we have that's so expansive and gives us access to seeing a whole soul's journey and their karmic blueprint, and how the planets hold these energies. The planets hold the karma from past lives. And so where they're located in the chart, which conjunctions are there, which aspects are there, where the planets are located within the houses and the signs, really shows like, okay, this is where that person was in this past life, and these are the lessons that are going to come up for them. And so it gives us tools to guide them through those lessons with as much ease and grace as possible, and gives them the awareness like, oh, this is coming up because of this, and to take it less personally and just allow them to move through it with grace.
Totally. I love that it just offers just more compassion and understanding for, like you said, who you are in the soul level. And it's so beyond, not about and so beyond just being able to predict or put people into boxes on like, this is your fate. It's more of like, you get to dance within the chart and you get to choose the paths that you want to because the chart is lit up based on your own free will and how you choose to live your life. But the thing that I find that is so awesome is the connection between the planets, like you said, because the planets guide everything in Jyotish. And I love for you to go into what each of the planets mean in depth and how they can be the keepers of karma because I know a lot of our listeners are still just no understanding Western astrology, and I think Western astrology really signifies the signs a lot, like Aries, Taurus, Gemini, and so forth. But of course, the Vedic studies they honor the elements, they honor nature, and that's because we have that stronger pull to the planets. So, yeah, I'd love for you to go into depth into the planets and how they are the keepers of the karma.
Yeah, it's a lot of information, so I don't think I could share it all within this session. But to just give you a flavor of each planet, right? I can definitely highlight that, the flavor and the planet and which element and which dosha it's working with. So the sun is working with our ability to be confident, right? Our ability to be a leader, to take charge in our life, to really guide with that bright light, right? So there's always higher aspects, there's balance aspects of these planets, and there's imbalance aspects. So if sun were too hot or too fiery, or the client was out of balance, right, and their sun is needs balance, it would show up as being arrogant or being too overly confident, right? Know it all. This person knows everything, right? And so working with that energy through the practices, through meditation to find balance. So this would be, it's a fiery planet, so it's working with pitta, right? And then you have the moon. The moon is more watery, it's more kapha like. And this planet is really showing up as our intuition, the mind, our healing capacity, our ability to be the mother, the nurturer, to hold that space. But when this energy is out of balance, it would show up as always in the mind, can't make any decisions. It can show mental instability, right? So, really balancing that watery element through meditation, through different mantras and practices is really important. And then we have Mars. Mars is another fiery planet, and it is another Pitta dosha. And so Mars is giving us also our confidence, our courage, our capacity for willpower. So that inner strength, our capacity to show up in service, like Hanuman. So really being service oriented. It gives us adventure, to take risks, right? And so out of balance, Mars could be really aggressive. Mars could be really violent also, physically violent. Mars, someone who has a lot of Martian energy is like that person who's like always in the gym clothes, always walking around ready for the next thing, really fired up in life. You can see a Martian like person and really pick them out of the crowd. And then moving into Mercury, Mercury is another softer energy. This is more tridoshic. This is working with all three doshas. It can also show up as vata, a little more vata, but mostly tridoshic. And this is also part of the mind. So Mercury is also showing up like moon, showing up in the mind, the intellect. So having a strong, balanced Mercury would show up as knowing the correct intellect, right? Being able to know when you don't know the answer to something and expressing that, having that awareness, to learn easily, to work with languages. These are all balanced parts of Mercury. Imbalanced Mercury would be the person who thinks they know everything, but they might actually not know the right knowledge. So using that in a different way. And also being stuck in the mind, unable to make decisions, really stuck in the head. And then there's Jupiter. Jupiter is the biggest planet, and it's working with Ganesha. And Jupiter is really, it's a Kaphic planet, so it's big, it's heavy, right? And so it's grounding. It's really grounding. Jupiter brings a lot of wisdom, brings a lot of joy also, in abundance. And so working with the energy of Jupiter is expansive. It's an expansive state. Now Jupiter out of balance can be caught up in materialistic things. Jupiter out of balance can be focused on abundance more in the wrong way of just accumulation, right? But Jupiter balance could be community oriented, could be just a space holder. So really allowing that energy to flow in balance. And then we have Venus. Venus is working with the energy of air, right? So Venus is Vata, and it's a little bit Kapha too at times, it can be. And this planet is all about Shri, all about enjoying the ecstasy of life, the beauty of existence, really tapping into grace, all the grace that surrounds us, all of the beauty within. And this planet, if the energy is out of balance, can show up as also seeking materialistic things or addiction or addicted to sex or whatever substance escaping one is escaping through. And so Shukra, this energy of Venus, you really want to balance that energy and tune into the grace that is here in this life. And it's also a very feminine energy. And working with creativity, arts, music, dance is all Venus like energy, Venusian. And then there's Saturn. So Saturn is one of our other teachers. So Jupiter, Venus, and Saturn are all planets that show up as teachers within the chart. And so where they're located shows up as who is our teacher and what is our teacher in life. When you look at a chart, a natal chart, you can see what's going to be teaching you and how you're going to work with this energy. So Saturn is all of our unlearned lessons. This is our karma coming up to face us, all the stuff stored in the crevices, right? And so this is a Vata energy. It's a very dry energy and airy. And one really needs to see those lessons and be willing to work through them in order to be at ease in the energy of Saturn. When Saturn's in your chart in a certain transit, or in a certain cycle that you're in. So Saturn is our biggest, one of our teachers. And those who aren't willing to be with those lessons or aren't ready to see those lessons will really suffer a little and feel that pain of these unlearned lessons, and they'll keep repeating until the being is ready to see it. So this is when someone is in a Saturn transit or a Saturn dasha season, one really needs the tools, needs awareness that they're in that season and how to work with the energy and what practices or mantras they can do to really remedy that energy. So there's always tools, and these aren't bad and good planets. It's just they bring a certain energy, they bring a certain combination, and as long as you have awareness and you're seeking more depth into that, then you can find ways to remedy that energy. And then there's Rahu and Ketu, the dragon's head and the dragon's tail. And this is the lunar nodes of the chart. So they're not physical locations, but they show the ecliptic pattern and path within the chart. And so Rahu is more expansive, outward. It's also the most Vata, airy energy within the chart. And this gives us a lot of creativity, a lot of thinking out of the box. But Rahu out of balance can cause a lot of disruption in one's life. It's like a whirlwind, right? And so one needs to stay grounded, to really have a practice of grounding and tuning into what is Rahu showing me and coming back to oneself. Otherwise, Rahu is a trip. And so you really need to be grounded, be here, and learn how to balance and work with that energy. And the last expression through the planets would be Ketu. And Ketu is more inward, right? Rahu is expansive, outward energy, and Ketu is inward. Ketu resembles liberation, moksha. And when you're in the phase of Ketu, it's a lot of more inward reflection, wanting to be alone and really be with yourself and learn through these different inner journeys. So it's more of a contracted energy. So K2 out of balance does show up as fire, though. It can show up like the sun. So it's a pitta energy. And so really knowing how to work with that energy. K2 can be the one who's like taking a secret accountant list in the background, you know, counting, oh, I did this and that person didn't do this. And so K2 out of balance can show up in that way. K2 in balance is liberation. It's detachment from all circumstances. And so really being free in that way. So you can see how all of the planets have their different energies, their different doshas, and through different practices in awareness, they can all, you can meet the highest aspect of all of these planets. So having a Vedic reading just brings awareness to that. And how do I work with these energies? What are the remedies for them? And just looking at our own patterns, essentially, how to clear them. So that's my little insight with the planets.
That is beautiful and perfect. Thank you. I love that explanation too, because that's all the Vedic wisdom is. That's what we say in Ayurveda too. It's all about balancing. There's never a good or a bad dosha. It's all recognizing and accepting where your imbalance is, where the elements are in that current picture. We call that the Vikruti, and then finding how you can bring in the other elements so that you can feel whole and complete. And Jyotish is just another piece of the puzzle to that. So I hope that got everyone kind of sparks flying. And Corinne does Jyotish readings because Jyotish is so specific to your natal birth chart. She really dives deep into where the planets are for you when you are born at your unique time, your soul blueprint, and all that beautiful stuff. So I'll have all of that linked in the show notes if you want to dive deeper into your astrological signs with her. So I'd love to kind of close this out just asking what either like visions or like goals or anything that you have in the making or coming up for this year.
I love that question. And it's actually in my field. I haven't fully thought about it, but today is my birthday. I'm 35. And
Oh my
so
God, happy birthday!
it's a question I always ask myself on my birthday is what's in the future, kind of what's in the field. And so, yeah, it's a great thing to think about right now. For me, it's really expansive and also a lot of surrender. So here in Maui, I've been growing this space called Sita Sattva Home Maui, and really just having the teachings coming through as like mother, the nurturer, which is synchronistic that I'm pregnant right now and on this other journey as well. So yeah, life organized. So it's about holding a container here and creating a community of intentional living where people can drop into these practices and go deeper, and eventually building spaces for people to live here, like a small community, and keep things running so that you don't have to go all the way to India. There's other options, but you can go all the way to India, and just make it available to people to go deep into their sadhana and be living in sadhana. And it's really important to live that way by practicing it in community. And so that's the intention here, is to create a community where people can just dive in and go deep, and with retreats and courses and different sadhana practices within communities. So that's really the focus, is on growing a sangha, growing a community, holding space, and yeah, continuing to do readings and expand in this way, and diving into what it means to be a mother in the physical form and all of this nurturing. So I will be going back to India, and whenever India opens, so teaching at teacher trainings there still, and really just going deep into expansion and that nurturing essence of these practices and how that will show up in as living sadhana, tuning into being a mother and a parent. And I'm sure my practices will have to shift, and how I get to apply them and the space that I get to hold for them will absolutely shift depending on baby and that flow. So adapting to that in a lot of surrender. So allowing myself to move in grace as best as I can with the tools that I have, and be a model of that, essentially.
Oh, that is so beautiful. And you are just radiating right now as a mother. It's so agreeing with you. And I've been loving your Instagram stories of all your luscious food and your massive smoothies that look so good. um, and your space is so beautiful too. I was for our listeners, I was gonna do Corinne's retreat last year in Maui. I've been wanting to go to Maui so bad, and obviously, COVID. tell us otherwise. Have a higher plan, but I'm so excited to visit your place because it looks so beautiful and the community that you've already built there. If our community is not in Maui, how else can they work with you and book readings with you?
Yeah, you can find me online at One Root 7 Branches, either on Instagram or I have a website, oneroot7branches.com. And this is just the way the teachings have flown through me to really apply them to life. So I do one on one sessions, just mentoring sessions. And then I do Vedic astrology readings, and I can do this all virtually. I also do distance healing sessions. So working with hands-on energetic healing. So all of this has been something that I really, really love to do, and just bringing these gifts and sharing them in new ways. So
Hmm.
those are a couple ways you can find me. And there will be another retreat. It's 2022 in
Ooh.
August. Yeah.
Ah,
So
oh, I can't
it's
wait.
been really
And I just absolutely love your teachings. As our community knows, but I just love you as a person. You just radiate such love and light. And I know our community is going to be so inspired from your words today and from hearing your story and all your experiences. So thank you for sharing your time and especially on your birthday. Oh my gosh. You're just the sweetest person, and I'm so grateful.
likewise. It's truly an honor to work with you and be here. And I love all that you're creating and manifesting and sharing with an expansive community. So thank you for having me, truly.
All right, everyone. We'll see you next time.